Today is Sunday, January 8th, 2023. I have seen lots of YouTube videos describing practically everything about day trading. And I'm reviewing things over and over and over. And it's good that I'm watching it over and over again. For instance, I watched one of the um, videos on uh, chat with traders, and they talked about some of the things that they talk about when I review it. Although most of the content is redundant, there are one or two pieces of information that comes into light. And um, I believe it may be one of the S&B Capital traders that was it being interviewed. Um, and it talks about um, being so sure about a um, oh, actually, it's about Etienne's interview with this guy who's been trading for about 20 years, and he pointed out the fact that there was one setup that the person was so sure about was able to, I believe that's what's called an A plus trade. So they would put a significant amount of emphasis on that particular one setup, and make a significant high probability trade. So that seems very much like a pretty much. So they talk about the efficacies of some of these setups, and some of these setups are either 50% or 60% of the time, or 70% of the time, or 80% of the time. So when a particular setup works 80% of the time, then they're able to put the same amount on that particular trade. That means that 8 out of 10 times they're able to make gains on it. So even if they lose, it's like it's like 20% of the time they're losing. So essentially, what that will do is 60% is sure for sure. The 20% of that 80% will cover the loss. So even if I go with the same amount, that's it. Now, as I've seen more and more of these, now I'm attempting to focus on a particular. So I need to focus and build my statistical advantage in and categorizing the setups. And when I move in that direction, then I will have a statistical advantage in the market. That's what I'm looking for now. Uh, the amount of YouTube videos that I have digested is uh, essentially every day, Saturday, Sunday, Monday through Friday, has been for the past year and a half to 2 years of consistently watching the same thing over and over and over again. At the beginning, didn't make any sense, but now it's time to focus on the particularity of defining what type of a setup in the market will provide me with the best result. So, what do I look for? I suppose what I need to do is look for identify identify each of the stocks that I'm looking at, and then categorize them, and then define which ones are the most common, and then look for that particular setup in the future. So one more thing that I've listened to is couple I've reviewed some of these things, and some of these things are making more sense now. The first, the primary, and the most important thing that professional day traders, the two of them recently I've reviewed, stated that it is charting. Charting. Charting is the most important thing for them, and it changed their trading game plan. So charting is a very, very important part. Why is that? Why is why is charting so important? Charting must be charting charting is the single most important thing apparently. There's other things, but the charting seems to be the single most important thing because um, there is a possibility of a fake out, but charting provides, apparently it's like reading a book. And when the market opens up and it behaves in a manner, then it is essentially that's what happens. And one of them, contrary to how things are traded, they just ignore VWAP. They go with stochastics. So this one individual who's been trading for 20 years uses stochastics in order to make trading decisions. So not everybody uses certain indicators. So there are people who favor one particular indicators uh, versus another indicator. So I need to keep looking into this and focus on what I need to do. And so so now I need to specifically identify and categorize these. That's the work that I need to do. I need to I need to categorize the most common things that occur, and then categorize what the magnitude of that particular event happens, then assign a probability for that particular setup, then look for it in the future, and then have a statistical advantage in the possibility of that particular setup and the statistical advantage of seeing it, how much it expands. When that happens, then I can statistically assign particular setups the grade that it is in the market, and then go for the biggest and the best return uh, by using that particular setup. So now the dynamics of day trading has changed, and I believe that makes sense. That does make sense. Charting is so important. Even these like penny stock traders, they look for the candlestick formation. They also support it by volume. They use volume to substantiate a dramatic change in the condition. And when that happens, there are individuals who will move in to to cause actually to erupt the fundamental change, and along with the fundamental change, an artificial inflation of that particular fundamental change, meaning a parabolic move because everybody's jumping into it, either down or up. So my job right now uh, essentially is to look deeper and deeper into correlating uh, and correlating and defining and assigning the statistical probability of a particular setup, and then assign uh, two to three or four different levels of, uh, I think it's called confluence. Is that what it's called? Confluence. Look it up. Confluence. Confluence. If I look at it, confluence. 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 The junction of two rivers, especially rivers of approximately, you go with. Oh yeah, I suppose that might make sense. So if I look at a junction or two major confluence of two financial markets. Yeah, that's what it is. It's merging of two different things to define a to define a to define a. It's just essentially strengthening the definition of the thesis. That's what it means. So I've come to the point where I have. It's like I've ventured into the vastness of the thickets of Alice in Wonderland, and then eventually, um, Alice in Wonderland has a limit. It has a limit, and uh, so after discovering Alice in Wonderland, it's time to exit Alice in Wonderland because I've explored it enough and have created a mental map of the Wonderland, and based on putting things together, I can see where the exit point is, where the entry point is, and where all the other bellies of intricate details of the Wonderland exists, and defining each crevices of Wonderland. So I suppose what I can say is that Alice in Wonderland does have a limitation, and it is, um, what is it called? When a subject matter is so complex that um, it's called it has so much in-depth uh, possibilities, apparently, that it is um, difficult to explore everything. Once I get into it, apparently it's a never-ending challenge of maneuvering around it to make sense of it because the vastness is so huge. I mean, it is huge. So, is it called a rabbit hole? I suppose. Is it? Is it what it's called? A rabbit hole? Anyway, it escapes me. But um, so there is some the the a thought and the direction now has confluence. Yeah, I think it's called a rabbit hole. I don't know. I forget what it is right now, but that's what it is. Yeah.